The January transfer window has finally opened, and once again clubs all over Europe are looking at potential additions that could improve their fortunes for the rest of the season. Choosing the right recruits could be the difference between a relegation and survival, Champions League or Europa League, or even a league title and a runners-up medal. There have been instances where the January transfer window has produced some of the most important and season-altering transfers in recent memory, with the likes of Nemanja Vidic, Luis Suarez, Virgil van Dijk, Erling Haaland and Bruno Fernandes, all making the switch during this winter window. Despite this, not every move in this window has been a hit down the years. For every Patrice Evra, there have been countless Wayne Bridges. Today, we are going to take a look at the top 10 worst January signings of all time. Number 10. Fernando Morientes. In the early 2000s, Fernando Morientes was amongst Europe's deadliest marksmen. Having been a regular at Real Madrid and the Spanish national team, Morientes would have been on the wish list of every club around Europe. Although, during the 2003-04 season, the Spaniard was sent away on loan to Monaco as he was no longer seen as part of the plans at the Bernabeu. Upon his return to Madrid, Morientes failed to score in 13 games in a row, which prompted Los Blancos to sell the once prolific forward. It was Rafa Benitez who brought his fellow countryman to Anfield for a fee of £6.3 million. His time on Merseyside was mediocre at best, with Morientes only finding the net 12 times in 60 appearances. He was eventually moved on to Valencia in May of 2006 for a fee of around £3 million. Number 9. Chris Samba. When QPR splashed out over £12 million on deadline day in 2013 for former Blackburn centre-back Christopher Samba, their situation was desperate. They were bottom of the table with just 10 points from 19 games, having conceded 33 goals. So the signing of Samba was seen as a step in the right direction. A strong, commanding force at the back with Premier League experience, the signs were looking positive for a possible revival. His monstrous presence at the back was matched by his monstrous wage at Loftus Road, reportedly earning over £100,000 a week. His time at QPR could be summed up by his performance against Fulham, where he both gave away a penalty and was robbed of possession to set up the second goal. QPR were relegated at the end of the season, and Samba was sent back to Anzi just half a season into his 4.5-year deal, incredibly for a fee similar to that of what QPR paid for him. Number 8. Jean-Alain Boumsong. Despite joining Rangers on a free at the start of the 2004-05 season, Newcastle boss Graham Souness tabled an £8 million bid in January 2005 to secure the Frenchman's services, a move which raised several eyebrows. So much so that the transfer was included in the Stevens inquiry in 2007 as, quote, "There remains inconsistencies in evidence provided by Graham Souness, a former manager of the club, and Freddie Shepherd, apparently acting in an undefined role, but not as a club official, as to their respective roles in transfer negotiations." Whatever the case, the move was sanctioned and Boumsong joined the Magpies on a 5.5-year deal. Despite a positive first few months on Tyneside, Boumsong's performances dramatically declined and was seen as the main reason behind the team conceding goals. He was eventually moved on in August 2006 to recently relegated Juventus following the Calciopoli scandal for a fee of around £3 million. Number 7. Kostas Metroglu. When you spend a club record fee on a player, you would hope that they will make an instant impact. That was the situation for Fulham when they brought in Greek international Kostas Metroglu for a fee of around £12 million on deadline day in 2014. Languishing in the bottom three, Fulham needed goals, and Metroglu was identified as the man to get them, having scored 89 goals in 199 appearances throughout his time in Greece. The fact that Fulham had to wait nearly a month for their record signing to make his debut should have been an indication for how Metroglu's time in London would go. He only made another 2 appearances that season, and Fulham were subsequently relegated. Metroglu was loaned back to Olympiacos the following season, before being sold permanently to Benfica in 2016 for a reported £7 million. Number 6. Juan Cuadrado. Having made a name for himself in Italy for both Udinese and Fiorentina, Juan Cuadrado had put himself at the top of European giants' wish lists. A fleet-footed, dynamic wide man whose direct running and skillful play would cause problems for any defence. In the end, it was Chelsea who stumped up the hefty fee to bring the Colombian to Stamford Bridge in 2015, with Mohamed Salah going on loan to La Viola as part of the deal. Despite the fee paid for Cuadrado, he only made 13 appearances after signing, only 4 of which were starts. He was loaned out to Juventus at the start of the next season, before eventually joining them on a permanent deal in 2017. Number 5. Savio Nsereko. Following the departure of Craig Bellamy to Manchester City for a fee of £14 million in 2009, the Irons were in need of a replacement. Manager Gianfranco Zola decided to pay a club record fee of £9 million for an unknown young winger out of Serie B, Savio and Serrico. There was undeniable scepticism surrounding the move, as the then 18-year-old had only played 22 games for Brescia and scored 3 goals. He was even handed the number 10 shirt as a show of faith in his abilities. Rather unsurprisingly, Serrico didn't live up to the, admittedly little, amount of hype that surrounded him, with just 10 appearances for the club scoring no goals. He was shipped off to Fiorentina just 6 months later for a reported £3 million, where he was sent out on loan numerous times before being released. He's more well known for faking his own kidnapping rather than anything he did on a football pitch. Number 4. Guido Carrillo. After the sale of Virgil van Dijk to Liverpool, Southampton looked to reinvest some of that £75 million fee into staving off the threat of relegation with a statement signing. With an average of less than a goal a game at that point in the season, manager Mauricio Pellegrino decided that the man for the job was Monaco forward Guido Carrillo, whom he had previously worked with at Estudiantes in Argentina. Despite never being a prolific striker, a club record fee of £19.1 million was paid to bring the Argentinian to St Mary's. That fee clearly weighed too heavily on Carrillo's shoulders, as he failed to score a single goal in his 10 appearances that season. He was shipped out on loan to Leganés the following season, and eventually left Southampton in 2020 to join Elche on a free transfer, meaning that they got nothing back on their investment. At time of writing, Carrillo has scored just 1 goal in 6 appearances for Elche. Number 3. Alfonzo Alves. There's an old adage amongst a certain generation of football fans, which is to never buy forwards from the Eredivisie, with the likes of Vincent Janssen and Matej Kejman immediately springing to mind. Although it's worth remembering that both Ruud van Nistelrooy and Luis Suarez came to the Premier League from the Dutch League. So when Brazilian forward Alfonso Alves scored 48 goals in 50 games for Heerenveen, which included scoring 7 in one game, Borough boss Gareth Southgate could be forgiven for thinking that Alves would fall into the former side of that argument. After parting with £12.7 million, Alves arrived on Teesside, with the Borough faithful excited at the prospect of this goal machine leading them to the European qualification. 13 goals in 49 games later, along with the team's relegation the following season, and it's fair to say that Alves had earned his place beside the Siem de Jongs and Jose Altidores, who starred in Holland but failed in England. Alves was sold in 2009 to Al Sadd for a fee of £7 million. Number 2. Andy Carroll. Deadline day of the winter window in the 2010-11 season is without a doubt the most dramatic of all time. After Liverpool agreed to sell their once lethal marksman Fernando Torres to Chelsea for a then British record £50 million, the Reds had just a few hours to bring in a replacement. Manager Kenny Dalglish saw Newcastle United forward as the heir to the Spaniard, having scored 11 in 19 games for the Toon that season. A £35 million fee was agreed, and the Geordie frontman became the most expensive British player in history. The signs looked ominous for Liverpool, as they were informed that Carroll was injured when they signed him, and he would have to wait several weeks for him to make his debut. Despite some memorable moments in the famous red shirt, including a goal in the 2012 FA Cup final, Carroll's Liverpool career was plagued by injury. He only made 58 appearances over his 2.5-year spell on Merseyside, scoring a total of 11 goals. Carroll went on loan to West Ham for the duration of the 2012-13 season, before making a permanent move to the Hammers for £15 million in 2013. Before we get to our number 1 pick, here are a few quickfire honourable mentions. Alexis Sanchez. The only reason Alexis Sanchez didn't make our list is due to the fact that Manchester United didn't pay a fee for him. Despite this, his lofty wages, along with his substandard performances, didn't endear him to the Manchester United faithful, and he was moved on to Inter Milan in the summer of 2020. Fernando Torres. The aforementioned Torres was on the decline when Chelsea paid that then British transfer record fee for him. He looked a shadow of his former self at Stamford Bridge, and was only able to find the back of the net 45 times in 172 appearances during his time in blue. Jean Makoun. The Cameroon international's eagerness earned him a straight red card just weeks into his time in the Premier League, and the suspension earmarked his difficulty to hold on a first team spot. 2 loan spells away from Villa Park later, Makoun was gone. Michael Ricketts. Middlesbrough shelled out £3.5 million for Ricketts in 2003 on the back of a prolific first season in the Premier League with Bolton. The giant target man could only manage 3 goals during his 1.5-year spell on Teesside though, and unsurprisingly, it would be his last ever season in the top flight of English football. Hossam Ghali. If you want to endear yourself to your new club, it's probably best that you don't throw your shirt to the ground after being substituted. Hossam Ghali failed to heed this advice following his £3 million move to White Hart Lane in 2006. He never played for the club again. Number 1. Philippe Coutinho. There's no denying that Philippe Coutinho is a world-class talent. As an attacking midfield player, there's not a lot more you could wish for. He can dribble, he can shoot, he can create, and he can play in any number of positions in the middle of the park. However, since signing for Barcelona in 2018, Coutinho's stock has dropped dramatically from his glory days when he was the main man at Liverpool, where he had 87 goal involvements in 176 appearances. When the Catalan giant stopped up an initial £105 million, with roughly another £40 million in add-ons, it seemed a massive overspend, despite the obvious talent Coutinho possessed. After only 76 league appearances, Coutinho joined Bayern Munich on a season-long loan. The German champions had an option to purchase Coutinho for £106 million during his loan spell, a loan spell in which he ironically scored 2 goals against his parent club to send them crashing out of the Champions League in an 8-2 hammering. Bayern did not take up the option on Coutinho, who is now back at Barcelona. In total, Coutinho has 24 goals in 90 appearances for Barca at the time of writing, which honestly doesn't sound too bad, but when you factor in the amount of money they have spent on both the transfer fee and his wages, it's hard to dispute that Philippe Coutinho is the worst January transfer of all time. So that's our list of the top 10 worst January transfers in history. Now, there have been literally dozens of terrible January moves throughout the years, so it's inevitable that we've left some out. So let us know in the comment section below which ones we forgot. If you enjoyed this video, do remember to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell for notifications. Thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you as always in the next one.